Alright, y'all. So today we're going to be going over Nobara Kugisaki, the Girl of Steel. And we're going to be obviously talking about what are the skill priority levels and the synergies that work with her, as well as the memories. And obviously we will talk about how she plays and how I evaluate the character. So as we can see here, Nobara is an SSR mono yellow attacker, right? So she is going to naturally be your carry for most of your teams. Now, before we actually get started, I would like to put out beforehand that she's currently, as she is rated right now as an SS, as time goes on within the global version, she will probably drop down to an S. But at the beginning and start of the game, she's definitely going to be very powerful. So obviously we are going to be putting her at SS for the meantime, right? As more characters release that are going to ultimately pass the character and are, power creeping. So let's get right into it and start talking about skill level priorities, and then we'll move on to the synergies afterwards. All right, so the first thing that we're going to be talking about out of the skills to level is going to be her ultimate. Her ultimate is Ultimate Straw Doll Technique Hairpin. And essentially what this does is it will increase the selected enemy's nail count by 3 for 3 turns. And then on top of that, it'll deal 225% range jujitsu damage to all enemies with nail count. Keep in mind, this is at level 1. At level 10, it's 449%. Obviously, the higher the enemy's nail count, the greater the damage, and then it will remove all the nail counts from the enemy. So how this character functions is that you apply nails to enemies, and you will do damage based on how many nails you have on the enemy. Another thing to note is, even though this character can apply nails, that makes her really good in scenarios where you have a group and scenarios where you have just one enemy. Because let's say there's 2 bosses and you use nails on each separate boss. When you do your ultimate, you'll do damage to both bosses. That essentially makes her an AoE character, but also a single target character at the same time. So I really like that, because now you have that flexibility to target who you want to get out of the way and still do the, a lot of damage based on how many nails you have. So the damage is not really, you're not really losing damage unless you're going AoE and spreading out your nails. But either way, it's still really good. Overall, you can do either AoE and single target. Makes her very viable. I really like how they implemented this. It's very nice, at least in my opinion, right? Next up, we're going to have her buffing skills. I'll just exercise you, that is the name of it, and it increases your own jiu-jitsu damage. The reason why I didn't prioritize it over the ult is because the main reason you're using Nobara Kugisaki is to apply nail stacks and then after that use your ult. So I still feel like her ultimate is more important than anything else, because that's what you're essentially going to be removing all the nail stacks and doing damage to them with. But yeah, we have the buff as second, of course. So yeah, this one's going to definitely be second, because the other ones, however they're good, they're not really used for the same purpose, and you don't really need to level them up for its actual intent, right? So let's move on to the third skill that we have here on the priority list, which is nail tossing. So this is what you apply nail counts to the enemies. So I'll kind of give you a rundown of what it does. So at level 10, deals 148% range jiu-jitsu damage to the selected enemy, a total of 3 hits. It will then increase the selected enemy's nail count by 3 for 3 turns. So what this means is your normal attack, which is the skill that we're talking about currently, will be able to apply nails to an enemy. You don't really need to level it up yet compared to the other ones, because the main reason you're using it is to increase nail count, so that way when you use your ult, you do as much damage as possible. This allows you to do your spreading and everything, or if you're attacking one singular boss, then you're able to continuously keep stacking nails. I feel like that one should be third, because that's the only reason you're going to be using that is to apply nails, and the ultimate is what is going to be doing the most of your damage, and the second skill right here is what's going to be buffing your damage, right? So I still feel like these have higher priority over your just basic attack, which no matter what, even at level 1 or level 10, will still increase the nail count by 3. And then last but not least, we have this skill. So this skill is Straw Doll Technique Resonance. At level 10, deals 358% range jujutsu damage to the selected enemy. The lower the HP, the greater the damage boost. Now, in some cases you may use it, in some cases you won't. The reason why you won't use it most of the time is because it is 40 cursed energy. It's quite a bit, and you rather just have the buffs from your I'll just exercise you skill, which will increase your jiu-jitsu damage. It's just significantly better. And on top of that, if you're going to do damage, you might as well just be doing damage with this skill right here. So I feel like this should be last, and in some cases you might not even upgrade it because it's only going to do about 200% more modifier than the normal skill, but you get no nail count increases off of it. So you're kind of limiting yourself if you're not using your nail increases to the enemies with this. So in most cases you will not be using this, but maybe if like an enemy is really low and you just need to get them out the way, you'll probably use it, because then at that point increasing the nail count on the enemy won't matter because they'll die and then the nail count will be gone. So yeah, that's how I feel about the skill level priority. I guarantee you this is the best way to set up your skill levels. Definitely targeting your ult first, then your buff, then your nail count increases, because you'll be using it very often to increase nail count. So you want a little bit higher damage modifier. And then this has very, very, very unique scenarios where you can use this super situational. All right, so next up, let's actually talk about the synergies. So naturally, we have here is Yaga and Nanami. So as you can see here, I have them both. If you don't know already, Yaga is a buffer character as well as Nanami. They do buff your team's damage. Yaga being able to buff your Jujutsu and Taijutsu damage. I believe it's like 45%-ish around there, while Nanami boosts his own damage by 45% and then increases the team's damage by 34%, and that's for 4 turns. Both of them have that buff for 4 turns. You can literally just spam their skills so that way you can have a lot of buffs because they stack. Yeah, that essentially makes your nuking strats possible with them and Nobara, so you definitely want to use them. Again, they're going to be in a lot of characters synergies just because they're super flexible and they're just buffers, so that's why they're here, and they synergize well with Nobara, whose main goal is literally to just do damage. Next up, we have Gojo. As you know, Gojo is very powerful, being able to dodge everything, do an AoE nuke, do big damage, increase his own damage by like 75% for 3 turns. Very powerful character indeed. Obviously, he's going to be very nice in a lot of teams just because he's super flexible. You can either make him your nuker, which most of the time he will be. On top of that, you can also make him your tank by applying memories that give him the taunt status, so that way when they attack him, they'll do no damage to him because of his limitless technique, which allows him to avoid all attacks. So yeah, I mean, 2 nukers, you have Nobara and Gojo, yeah, like GG, by the way, GG. And then you have Yaga and Nanami together with them, yeah, no stages surviving that onslaught. Absolutely powerful. Yeah, there's literally not much to talk about Gojo. He literally is just that guy, okay? Next up, we have Yuji. There's not much to say about this character except he is going to be very strong at the start, so he definitely will pair up very good with Nobara. When you're trying to run a team setup with Yaga, Nanami, and Nobara, you can have him as your 4th slot to do damage. Definitely good character. You can even have him in the backup slot, so that way in case Nobara does happen to die, you have him to replace her and then do damage as well. So not really much to talk about here. He's just going to be very good carry at the start. Next up, we have Inumaki. So the use for Inumaki is going to be quite different than other characters because Inumaki is more of a break character. He has a bunch of things in his kit that help the rest of his team, like providing a revive for a character who happens to die. Well, it's not like a revive. So essentially, when your character is going to die from an attack, he activates his stop curse technique, and it will keep your character alive. So so if you're like using him with Nobara, if your Nobara is about to die, you have that survivability where Inumaki will keep her from dying. On top of that, he is a breaker, so him being able to break the enemies and put them in a weaker status, so that way Nobara can just absolutely nuke them. He's definitely going to be very good. Plus, they're both yellow, so when you're tackling content that is disadvantaged towards yellow, then yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of damage and breaking them very quickly with Inumaki and Nobara together. So that is why he is a very good synergy with her. Now then, we're done with the characters. Let's move on to the memories, which is going to be important when building characters. Also, I do like to say that I do call them memories, and that's just because of the rough translations from the JP side. In global, they should be called Recollection, which is going to be very different. So just don't get confused when I'm talking about them, but I'm pretty sure you shouldn't, because obviously I left you the image here. So first memory we're going to be talking about is Desperate Struggle. That memory essentially is a very nice memory for her overall. It's when you use your command skill or ultimate skill, so basically any of your skills or ultimate skill, you'll increase your own damage dealt by 40% for 2 turns, and its cooldown is 7 turns. On top of that, if your HP is 50% or below, when activating, increases own damage dealt by 15% for 2 turns. So if you do manage to activate when you're low, you will have a 40% increase in damage dealt and a 15%, so you'll have roughly 55% damage increase for 2 turns. Then on top of that, if you do manage to limit break it and get a dupe on it, at the start of turn, if own HP is 50% or below, fills own ultimate skill gauge by 1000 up to 1 time during battle. In most cases, this will, unless you had just used your ult the turn before, this should get you to max ult like immediately. So as long as it's not the very first turn after you used your ult, you should be good. This will fill you up completely and you will have your ult once again. On top of that, its activation is at below 50% HP, so that will be in unison with its actual effect and not the passive, where you will have that extra 15% damage dealt bonus as well if you activate it around that time, right? It's a very, very, very good memory for her, because being able to activate all these ultimates straight off the bat, especially when you're increasing the nail counts on the enemies, you're just going to do tons of damage. It feels like you're just spamming with her in a sense. You're not, but like you'll do tons of damage with it. So ultimately, I feel like this is definitely a good memory for her. Next up, we have the other memory here that you can see, the Hollow Purple Gojo memory, called non-standard. It might be different on the global side, but right now, for the translations we have, it's called non-standard. And if you don't know what this does, this is going to be one of the most powerful memories for characters who utilize Jujutsu damage, right? So for her, when ultimate skill is activated, increases own Jujutsu damage by 80%. And the cooldown is 6 turns. So it's going to give you a big nuke to the enemy. Very strong indeed. Nothing wrong with that. And then, of course, you have its limit break, a passive ability where at the start of each wave, fills own ultimate skill gauge by 200. So obviously, this is going to be one of the good ones on her. It's going to be one of the best ones for a long time on a lot of Jujutsu characters, just because it gives you that special skill gauge regen for your ultimate. And then also it does give you a lot of damage boost for one singular nuke by having an 80% Jujutsu damage increase. So next one we have is Pride, which is the Jogo memory that's just below Hollow Purple Gojo. And it's like a smaller version of Hollow Purple Gojo, so, but in a different sense. So what it does is it increases own Jujutsu damage by 55%, and the cooldown is 5 turns, right? And then its limit break ability at the first level, like the first limit break, at the start of turn, if own HP is 50% or below, increases own damage dealt by 30%. So ultimately, you can get an 85% damage increase from it if you do time it well. Well, not 85%, because you increase your own damage dealt and the other ones increase their own Jujutsu damage, but you're going to get quite a significant amount of damage buff. So it's another good option if you do not have the Hollow Purple Gojo, which gives you a straight up 80% Jujutsu damage increase for that turn. So it's also very good, and the cooldown for its skills are 5, so it's not that long either. Let's move on to the next memory, the third one. So for this third memory right here, as you can see, we have Adult Time. And what Adult Time does is when you use a command skill or ultimate skill to activate the memory, it increases own damage dealt by 70% for 1 turn. The cooldown is 6 turns. So again, this is another option if you don't have Hollow Purple Gojo or Jogo. This will increase your damage a lot. And then if you limit break it, when a crit is performed, increases all allies crit hit rate by 10% for 2 turns. So if you manage to crit with her, you will be able to get that crit bonus as well for all your team, which gives you a little bit more consistency in trying to crit. So I don't think it's bad overall. It's another good alternative option if you do not have the others. So again, this is just another way to show you these are the ones you kind of want to use on a character like this, because she's your carry and you're going to want to do as much damage when you're using her ultimate. So that's literally what all these memories are for. There's in unison with her ultimate. Now we have the free to play option. So again, we have another option for people who don't manage to get these other memories here. You'll at least have this one for sure, right? So that memory is called Nobara Kugisaki, and it increases own Jujutsu damage by 60%. So as you can see, it's a pretty high modifier, especially for an SR memory. So it's still very good, even if you don't have the other ones. Now, of course, its limit break skill might not be as good as the other ones, and obviously its modifiers are going to be a little bit less than the other ones. It's still overall pretty good for the character. Like I said before, Now that we've talked about everything that she does, my overall evaluation of this character is an SS. As I said before, she's very strong for like quite some time, but of course, as time goes on and we get more characters of the same typing, for example, I'll give you one right now. When half anniversary does happen to come, we will be getting Gojo, another one, and he will be yellow, so he's basically going to be a better version of her, like in terms of being a carry. She's definitely going to fall off a bit. She's still going to be usable if you don't manage to get the Gojo, right? Like, she's still going to be usable, but that Gojo is obviously on an entirely different level. But she is going to be an amazing boss killer and still future proof, literally, for quite some time, being able to spread AoE ults even to single target ults. It's, yeah, a lot of content that's going to come in the future is going to be literally gatekept by like powerful bosses, and she's definitely going to be able to get by them regardless, even if the Gojo releases. Without further ado, that's the end of the video, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Peace.